Hi all. Our instructive game today is actually the first of what I want to be a four-part series on handling a particular style of opponent. So to demonstrate this theme, I'm going to choose the game Garry Kasparov versus Tigran Petrosian, played in Moscow 1981. So this is one of Kasparov's first two decisive encounters with Petrosian, where he lost both games against him. Tigran Petrosian, if you don't know, was a former world champion after Vartanovich and successfully defended his first match against Spassky by the narrowest of margins, but then was later defeated by Spassky. Petrosian was also the man which gave some stiff resistance to Fischer on his path for challenging Spassky in the 1972 match. Not only that, Petrosian was actually the most featured master statistically in Chernev's most instructive games of chess. So what is it about Tigran Petrosian that makes his style particularly distinctive? Kasparov talks about it as if Petrosian is the master of prophylaxis, actually reacting to potential opponents' attacks even before they've even been conceived. So here Kasparov, playing white, played d4, and Petrosian played knight f6, and after c4 opted for the Nimzo-Indian. So Kasparov avoided the main line Nimzo-Indian. He played knight f3, inviting kind of queen's Indian. Petrosian now played b6, and now Kasparov played a3, so he doesn't want this bishop b4 annoyance at all. So Petrosian continued with bishop b7, and after knight c3 played d5. After c takes d5, Petrosian didn't want to lock in his bishop on b7 behind the pawn, and didn't fancy having hanging pawns, so he actually took here with the knight. So he's avoiding the situation with hanging pawns of e and c pawns. And after e3 he played bishop e7. So after bishop b5 check now, Kasparov is checking Petrosian, so it's quite a disruptive check, provoking a move like c6, because knight d7 I think is no good here. Knight e5 would be a strong reply, giving advantage to white. So Petrosian is forced to play c6. And now after bishop d3, Petrosian takes on c3, and after b takes c3, we see a slight issue with white's pawn structure. There's an isolated a pawn, which later you will see that Petrosian gobbles up when it advances to a4. Here though he plays c5, liberating his bishop on b7. And after castles, black castled, and after queen c2, Petrosian now simply played g6. So there is a kind of provocation here already, in that what is black's active plan? He's got nice bishops and a bit of tension in the centre, but is he waiting for white to try and attack him? Kasparov played e4, and now we see knight c6. So here the pressure on d4 is being increased, and after bishop h6 rook e8 was played. So Petrosian potentially can move his bishop back to f8. It doesn't look that dangerous, the attack at the moment. After rook fd1, now queen c7 was played. So it's almost got a flavour of the Grunfeld defence here, with black pressurising Kasparov in the centre. Kasparov played queen e2, and now rook e d8 was played. So again, intensifying d4 pressure. And after queen e3, e5 was played. So here, Petrosian is accepting white's having a strong, potentially strong, passed d pawn. On the other hand, it can be easily blockaded. So it's controversial, this d5. Petrosian plays knight a5. And although it doesn't seem to have too many prospects, it seems Kasparov didn't mind after c4 giving that knight some prospects to bounce back in the centre with this kind of manoeuvre. So knight b3 was played, and now f6. So Petrosian's got knight d4 in reserve here. Kasparov now played h4. So he's going for the all-out attack. So sticking with his style, and not really adapting to Petrosian's style. So here's an interesting point. From Kasparov's book, which I've been reading, How Chess Imitates Life, he spoke that he actually adapted his style specifically against Petrosian after this and the other loss he had. So here we see the all-out natural Kasparov style, just h4, going for the hack attack. After bishop c8, Kasparov played rook b1, so positively encouraging this knight d4 hop. So Kasparov took and now played queen g3. So the attack's still dangerous. Probably the idea of giving black that past d pawn potentially is just to play f4, so black would have less counterplay in the centre because the centre's quite locked here. So after bishop f8, bishop d2 was played. Kasparov prepares f4, but not yet. Bishop d6 and now rook f1, again preparing f4. Queen g7, and now actually the move a4 was played. So maybe Kasparov is trying to decoy some resources to the defence of the b line and the b6 pawn in particular. So Petrosian played a5, not minding this potential problem pawn, backward pawn on the semi-open file. Rook b2 and now bishop c5, so that's why he doesn't mind it. This bishop is quite useful there, just defending b6, and it's quite solid. After f4 now, bishop d7 was played, so attacking that vulnerable a pawn. So finally we see a downside of white's pawn structure. Kasparov really can't play bishop c2 here because of d3 check as well, and he really doesn't want to defend it with the rook. So he actually just plays h5, hoping perhaps for a devastating attack. After bishop takes a4, h6, so this pawn can't be taken because if f takes e and then e takes f, that would seem to be crushing. So queen c7 was played, and now after f5, so Petrosian defended with g5, and now Kasparov took on g5. So apparently he's got kind of a dangerous attack. After fg, queen takes g5, Petrosian played king f8. This is the right defensive move, because if king h8, then simply queen f6, and if king g8, then rook f3 is crushing with the threat of rook g3. So king e8, king f8 was played rather, and after check, king 8, Kasparov played rook a1. Now here, Petrosian cleverly decided to give back the whole bishop to try and improve his position. He just played queen e7, not minding the queens coming off and then playing this endgame. Potentially this pawn could be picked off because it's on a dark square, for example, like this. So Kasparov didn't want to go into the endgame. He played queen e6, and now Petrosian played rook d6. So trying to get the queens off again. After check, he played queen f8. And here, it's apparent that white already has big problems. He can't really take on h7, because actually bishop d7 now is strong, and there's a threat of rook takes h6. So this starts to be much better for black. So here Kasparov is on the downturn. He plays queen g3, and now queen takes h6 was played. Again, simply allowing the bishop to be taken. But here, black has this devastating check, and now a massive advantage to black. So Petrosian simply plays now king f7, and he's now threatening rook g8. He's made white's position look completely harmless, and Kasparov resigned here. So let's have a look in overview and summary at this game, this clash of styles. Kasparov, the great attacking player, against Petrosian, the master of prophylaxis and defensive play when needed. So structurally, white just had this isolated a pawn to be a bit concerned about, but also the pressure on d4 provoked Kasparov into locking the centre. c4 was an interesting move. So he didn't want Petrosian to play c4 and perhaps bishop c5. So that's probably why he played c4, not minding this knight hopping to d4, getting this potentially strong passed pawn for black. But now we see Petrosian allowing white, or not that he couldn't do anything about it, to have this attack, but the way he defends is quite good. Rybka, though, actually quite likes white here with f6, but that's beyond the scope of this video, and it basically uses the inertia of these pawns in the centre, especially if white wins the e5 pawn. In the game, queen f6 was played, And we see now this Queen e7. So here, Petrosian is really keen to get into that endgame, even sacrifice the bishop back. So Kasparov was a bit frustrated perhaps, and just completely wrecked his position now, allowing this check and this king f7, and then he had no attack. And in fact, this is quite an embarrassment with this rook over here and this bishop here. It's useless pieces for the attack. So we have here an example of a clash of styles, which is part of a series I want to explore about conquering a particular style. So this defeat gave Kasparov his first lesson against Tigran Petrosian. Please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.